Do you ever wonder why sometimes it seems like it's so easy for somebody else to be a rock star, to making tons of money, super successful in franchise development, and you're not one of those? I'm going to talk today about the 7 keys to becoming a rock star in franchise development. You're going to want to stick around for this.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
As I said earlier, do you ever wonder why sometimes it looks so easy for somebody to be successful in their profession? And I'm going to talk specifically today about the career of franchise sales or career in franchise development. And that's going to include whether you're a development manager, development representative for a large franchisor. It's also going to include if you are an emerging brand founder that's doing the sales yourself. And candidly, it also includes franchise brokers, franchise consultants. So when I use that phrase, franchise sales rep or franchise development manager, I'm including all of those key areas that you can be successful in this space. And again, did you ever wonder why it just doesn't seem to be working for you or working out for you? And I'm going to caution you right here. If you're okay with the amount of money that you're making, if you're okay with being so-so, mediocre, average, then click me off right now, because I'm talking to the people who really know that they can do better than what they've been doing. They just hadn't figured out how. And that's why we're going to talk about the 7 keys to becoming a rock star. We're going to talk about the 7 best demonstrated practices of franchise sales professionals that make them not only professionals, but make them the best in the industry. So here goes. Number 1, they have a clear target market. The best franchise development people work for brands who know who they're looking for. And they don't just have it up here in their head. They have it written down, and they're constantly tweaking it as markets change, as time goes on. That can change. And so you want to be in tune with who's buying from you today, and you want to make those tweaks, but you've got to have clarity on who you're going after. Otherwise, your marketing, your lead generation, again, specifically if you're a broker consultant, you're doing your own marketing, or if you're an emerging brand and you're probably doing a lot of it yourself, or you're approving for an outsourced vendor to be doing your lead generation, you've got to be very, very clear on who your ideal prospects are, because that's who you want to take through the franchise evaluation process, through your franchise sales process. And the best of the best are very, very sharp and clear about who those people are. And they know when they see them, and will move them through their process, and they'll get rid of the ones who aren't their ideal candidate, but who may have responded to their lead generation. Another one, they have a clear franchise evaluation process. They stick to it and they manage it. And what I mean here is, again, it's not just up in your head. It's got to be something that's written down, and it's got to be something that you do all the time. I get so frustrated with my clients, my new clients, not my clients that have been with me for a while, but my new clients, and we'll be reviewing their pipelines together. And I'll say, well, okay, well, what step are they in? Well, with this one, I sort of went over here and did this, and I kind of deviated a little bit from my normal process because, well, there should be no becauses. Don't deviate from the process that works. The only way you're going to make good money, be a professional, be a rock star in this business, is to find the process that works for you, write it down, and stick to it. Do not deviate from it. I can pretty much guarantee you that when you deviate from the successful process, you're not going to be successful anymore. So the second thing is they have a clear sales process or candidate or prospect evaluation system, and they stick to it. Another one, the third one, is they know their numbers. This is a sound business practice, particularly if you are an emerging brand franchisor, who are some of our viewers and some of my clients. You absolutely, it's a business, and you need to know your numbers. You need to know what are the key performance indicators, the KPIs in your business, what you should be tracking. But I would tell you that if you're even if you're the sales rep and your responsibility is solely selling franchises, you should treat your career, you should treat your job responsibilities as if it was a standalone business. So know your numbers, particularly if you're a broker consultant. You are, even if you're by yourself, you have a business, and you need to be understanding what your KPIs are. Now, everybody's going to track sales. So I'm going to talk a little bit about leading indicators versus lagging indicators. The sale is the lagging indicator. We all know we've done well when the sale comes through, but what gets us to that sale? Those are the KPIs that are called and often referred to as leading indicators. So start to understand what are the key turning points or conversion points in your process that's going to lead to a sale, and track those ratios. So for a franchisor, it could be an application. Do you use an application? And if you do use an application, that's usually a pivotal time. The application often brings a whole lot of reality to the prospects when they start looking at how much money something really costs, what is their real net worth when they're calculating that, when they start to answer questions about how do I want to work full-time or part-time, how many employees have I ever supervised, et cetera, et cetera. The reality of owning a particular business that they're looking at really comes through. So an application is a good conversion rate point. You want that to be something that kicks a lot of people out of the process. And the ones who fill out the application, you have an application interview with them, those are the ones that are going to be the most serious, and they're your prime candidates for your franchise. So again, that would be a leading indicator. How many people make an application that actually end up going to the sale, becoming a sale? And of course, your raw leads, how many leads come in to make a sale? These are all things you need to be looking at. And again, leading indicators versus the lagging indicator of sale. Okay, so another one, the fourth one I'm going to talk about today, is the rock stars use various mediums of communication with their candidates, with the marketplace, and with their messaging. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is they use phone, they use texts. I was old school a couple of years ago. I thought that was very unprofessional. Now I use it all the time. They'll use emails. They'll use snail mails. They'll use video, but they use a variety of different mediums, so to speak, to communicate with their prospects. So why is this important? Well, the big reason it's important is, and not to get into too much of the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and assessments and profiling people, but the bottom line is we all have a primary way that we communicate and enjoy communicating and regularly communicate through that. But people, your prospects, when they become a lead for you to get started, you don't know what that is. So you need to use all of them to begin with, so that you can then tune in with your candidates, begin a dialogue with them, get to know them better, and then you'll find out which one works the best for them. People are also auditory versus kinesthetic versus visual. And again, you need to work on all of their senses, and particularly be able to address their primary senses and ways that they communicate. So again, using various mediums for communication is how the rock stars become rock stars. Another one is they know that 80% of a sale is made on emotion and only 20% of it is made on logic. And I will tell you that most people that I speak with actually end up spending their time in reverse order, if you will. And what I mean by that is we get so hung up on, here are the features, here are the benefits, here's what this franchise, if you're a broker, here's what this franchisor offers, here are the details. And yeah, some people love more detail, but the majority of people will make their decisions based on the emotion. So I like to use the phrase paint the picture. As a broker, as a consultant, you need to be painting the picture of owning a business. You need to be describing the changes in lifestyle, the building of wealth. What's that going to do for their family? Is that going to pay for a second home that they always wanted, or the different kinds of vehicles that they wanted, or putting their kids through college? But you need to get to their emotions as to why owning a franchise, why becoming a business owner through franchising is going to impact them personally. The reason I think we don't do this very often is because we're afraid to get in touch with our own emotions. And if you're a rock star, and this is one of the keys to almost any sale, the best people in sales that I've ever seen, the phrase often has been said, we can make them cry. And I'm not saying you want to make your prospects cry, but what that highlights is the fact that you can get them emoting. You can get them emotional about this decision. And once they get emotional about being a business owner, and the impact it's going to have on their lives and the lives of their family, you are more likely to make more sales because you were able to get them to become more emotional about the opportunity of owning their own business through franchising. Now, another one is that all of the rock stars will have all of the decision makers involved in this process. And boy, I'll tell you what, in franchise sales, this is one of the ones that a lot of people miss, and yet we'll often call it spouse-aside. But what happens with many people looking at owning a franchise or buying a franchise, they go, yeah, I'm talking to my wife. Yeah, he supports me or she supports me. Yeah. They're a little concerned about this or about that, but I'm talking to them. Yeah, after I'll call, I'm going to go share with them. And the reality is, the spouse is like nowhere close to being on board with this decision of the person quitting their job, leaving the stock options, turning in the company car, and spending money to take on something that there's no guarantee of a return. So you've got to get all the decision makers involved early as possible. But at the end of the day, don't spend a lot of time with candidates that are not going to allow you to engage with their spouses. You can do it, but I guarantee you're going to spend weeks and weeks and months with candidates that will end up never, ever buying because the spouse never checked in. The spouse was never on board. The rock stars in this business are strict about that. They'll talk to a guy or a gal for a little bit, maybe a couple of weeks and a few phone calls, but in the long run, they're not investing tons of times, and they're candid with their prospects. I always position right up front. I say, look, I'm not going to tell you and your spouse how to make your decisions in life, but what I am going to do is, knowing that it's so critical that your spouse have input in this and the impact it's going to have on them if you were to do this, I will want to be sure that your spouse is engaged. I want to make myself available to your spouse to ask me questions directly. And if I'm doing this as a broker, I know the franchisors are going to want to speak with your spouses as well. So it's okay right now if they're not engaged. And here's a couple of critical calls we'll have that they should be on. But I'm not going to spend too much more time with you until I'm confident that your spouse is supporting you. And I'll tell the candidates that, there's two big things that businesses fail, and one of them in particular applies to franchising. So one is capitalization. People start businesses not knowing how much money they need, and they run out of money before the business takes root. That won't happen in a franchise, but what will happen into a franchise is somebody does not have support around them in this endeavor. And without that support structure, and it starts with a spouse if they're married or a significant other, without that support structure, they reduce the probability of being successful. You want to share that reason with your candidates, and that is the reason why you want to have their spouse involved in the decision-making process. And then the last one, the seventh one, is that rock stars get to the real buyers quicker. And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned earlier, with an application, for example, they have things in their process, in their steps, in that evaluation process that they stick to. They have things that are going to weed people out. They have things that are going to have people opt out of the process. And that's good, because you want to get the unqualified candidates out as quickly as possible. You want to get the tire kickers out as quickly as possible. You want to get to the real buyers, because you want to have an appropriate amount of time available for them in the process, because those are the ones that are going to buy. So work hard at getting to the top, getting to the ideal candidates, getting to the real buyers by having certain checkpoints that are going to motivate people to kind of opt out of this decision, because they're either not qualified, or they're not going to make they're not going to ever make a decision to buy. So there are seven things that the real professionals in this business do. The real rock stars do. Let me go back and just review them quickly. They have a clear target market. They have a clear sales process or prospect evaluation process that they stick to. They know the numbers in their business. They use various methods of mediums of communication, so that they're hitting on all the right buttons for people that are auditory versus visual versus kinesthetic. They also know that 80% of the sale is made on emotion, 20% on logic. They spend their time with prospects in those ratios. Number 6, they have all the decision makers involved in the process as much as possible and as quickly as possible. And that number 1 on that is going to be your spouse, or be the prospect's spouse. And then the last one is they get to the real buyers quicker. They are very good at determining the unqualified, the tire kickers, the people that will never buy, and they don't spend a lot of time with them, which allows them to have a lot of time for the real buyers. So those are the 7 keys to becoming a rock star. These are the kinds of things that are in my 50+1 report. So again, if you want a free copy of the report, please just PM me, and I'll be sure to go ahead and get that out to you quickly. Thanks very much for your time today.